She said my name like it was something she wasn't supposed to touch. Soft. Careful. Then, after a pause too long to be casual, she said it again, slower. That's when I knew she'd been thinking about me, even if she didn't want to. It started simple. I was filling in for someone at the gallery, helping set up the weekend show. She walked in wearing quiet colors, the kind that don't try for attention but get it anyway. Her hair was still damp from the rain outside, curling at her neck. She didn't look up right away, just kept unbuttoning her coat, one slow snap at a time. When she did meet my eyes, it wasn't the kind of look people give when they're polite. It was heavier. Like she was trying to remember where she'd seen me before. "You're not usually here," she said. "No," I told her. "Just helping out." She smiled at that, not warm, exactly. Just a small, knowing curve, like she'd already decided what kind of trouble I might be. The gallery was empty except for us and the sound of rain against the skylight. She walked around the room, trailing her fingers along the wooden frames, her rings clicking gently against the glass. I pretended to check the lighting, but I kept watching her reflection move between the canvases. Every so often, she'd glance back. Not enough to call it staring, but enough that I noticed. Her gaze would slide over me and land somewhere else, like she was correcting herself mid-thought. "You look too young to care about art," she said eventually. "Maybe I just care about people who care about it," I said. That got a small breath of laughter out of her, the kind that ends too quickly, like she caught herself enjoying it. When she leaned over a sculpture, I moved beside her to adjust a spotlight. The air between us changed, sharper, quieter. Her perfume was subtle, something faintly floral that made the air feel thicker. I reached past her, careful not to touch, but my sleeve brushed her hand anyway. She didn't move. For a second, I thought she might say something. Instead, she stayed perfectly still. Her eyes followed the line of light across the floor, as if it had become the most important thing in the room. "You missed a spot," she murmured. Her voice was low, almost teasing, but her hand lingered where mine had been. I told myself I was reading too much into it. She was older, sure, but not cold, the kind of woman who could make you forget your own sentence halfway through. She carried herself like she'd already learned every lesson I was just starting to figure out. Still, when she spoke, there was a small crack under the confidence, like someone who'd stopped trusting the sound of her own heartbeat. I couldn't name it then, but I felt it. When she asked if I could stay a little longer to help finish setting up, I said yes before she'd even finished the question. She nodded, almost like she expected that answer. We worked in silence after that. The kind of silence that hums, not empty, but full of everything neither of us would say out loud. When the lights finally dimmed and she slipped her coat back on, she stopped by the door. The rain outside had turned steady, softer. "I'll see you tomorrow then?" she asked. I didn't remember agreeing to that, but she said it like it was already decided. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Tomorrow." She smiled, a small, tired smile that almost broke into something real, and then the door opened. A gust of cold air swept in, pulling the scent of rain and her perfume toward me. And just like that, she was gone, leaving me alone in a room that still felt like she was standing there. She came back the next afternoon with her hair pulled up, a pencil tucked behind her ear, and a quiet kind of tiredness that didn't match her clothes. I was already there, pretending to check the inventory list but mostly just waiting for the sound of her heels in the hallway. "You're early," she said. "So are you." "Force of habit." She smiled faintly. "I don't like being the last to arrive or the first to leave." I wanted to ask why, but something in her tone stopped me. The kind of voice that comes from years of trying not to explain yourself anymore. She moved differently that day, slower, like she'd been carrying too many thoughts and decided to put them down one by one. We worked side by side without much talking. Sometimes she'd reach for the same tool I was holding, and our hands would brush. Neither of us pulled away fast enough. At one point, she caught me watching her reflection in the glass of a framed photograph. "What?" she asked, half smiling. "Nothing," I said too quickly. She tilted her head, studying me. "You look like someone who thinks too much." "Only when I shouldn't." Her eyes lingered on mine long enough to make my chest feel too tight. Then she turned back to the frame and adjusted it by a fraction of an inch, like that tiny movement could erase the moment. We took a break around dusk. She sat on the edge of a display table, sipping coffee that had gone cold hours ago. "Do you always stay this late?" I asked. "Sometimes. It's easier than going home." Her words landed quietly. No explanation followed, just a small shrug. The kind of shrug that says everything you don't want to say out loud. I sat beside her, careful to leave space, but not too much. "Someone waiting for you?" I asked. "No," she said. Then, after a pause, "Not anymore." She didn't look at me when she said it, and I didn't press. I could tell by the way she held her cup, fingers tight, shoulders straight, that whatever had come before me had left marks she didn't want seen. When she finally stood, I reached to take the empty cup from her hand. Our fingers met. Neither of us moved. Her thumb brushed the back of my hand, maybe by accident, maybe not. My heart jumped, and I knew she felt it too because she froze, eyes flicking up to mine, breath just a little uneven. "This is complicated," she whispered. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if she meant the gallery, the age gap, or the fact that I couldn't stop thinking about her no matter how much I tried. "I know," I said quietly. She gave a small, almost broken laugh. "Then we'll just have to be careful, won't we?" But she didn't move her hand away. Not yet. For a few seconds, the world outside the gallery didn't exist, just the hum of lights, the faint smell of rain still in her hair, and the warmth of her skin against mine. Then, finally, she let go, slow enough to make it hurt. By the third evening, the air between us had changed. It wasn't just tension anymore, it was awareness. Every movement, every word, every silence had weight. We were setting up the last of the canvases when her phone buzzed on the counter. She didn't move to answer it right away, but the screen lit up enough for me to catch the name, Daniel. Her hand hesitated before she flipped it face down. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "It's nothing," she replied, too fast. "Just a friend." Her voice said friend, but her shoulders said something else. A mix of guilt and exhaustion. I turned back to the frame I was holding, pretending not to notice how long she stared at the phone before finally shoving it into her bag. When I reached for the ladder, she stopped me. "Let me," she said, brushing past. The smell of her perfume trailed close, faint, familiar. She climbed 2 rungs, adjusting the light fixture while I steadied the base. Her ankle was inches from my shoulder. She looked down, and for a second, neither of us breathed. "You're staring," she said, but there was no bite in it. "Sorry." "No," she murmured, eyes lingering on mine, "you're not." The words hung between us like something we weren't supposed to touch. That's when the door creaked open. A coworker, Mara, poked her head in. "Hey, lights still on? Thought everyone left hours ago." My hands dropped from the ladder so fast it wobbled. She steadied herself, heart in her throat, pretending nothing was wrong. "Just finishing up," she said, voice too even. Mara glanced at us, then at the single spotlight still flickering over the display, and smiled faintly. "You two really take this stuff seriously, huh?" "Guess we do," I said. She left a moment later, the door clicking shut. Silence again. But now it felt heavier, filled with everything that almost gave us away. She came down from the ladder slowly, one step at a time. When she reached the floor, she was so close I could see the tiny lines near her eyes, the way her pulse fluttered in her neck. "She almost saw," I whispered. "I know." Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't move from mine. "I don't even know what this is," she said. "Me neither." We stood like that, no sound, no movement, just the nearness of something we both wanted and both knew we shouldn't. Then she reached for my collar, smoothing a wrinkle that wasn't really there. Her hand stayed a beat too long. "You should go," she whispered. "I should." Neither of us moved. Her breath brushed my jaw when she looked up, close enough that I could feel the warmth of it, not close enough to cross the line. "Tomorrow," she said finally. It wasn't a question. "Tomorrow," I repeated. And even as I walked away, I could still feel her fingertips ghosting against my skin, proof that neither of us really wanted to be careful anymore. It had been raining for hours the night she didn't plan to see me. The gallery was closed, lights dimmed, and I was just finishing paperwork when I heard the door unlock. She stepped inside, shaking the rain from her coat, eyes searching the room like she wasn't sure why she came. "You shouldn't be here," I said, though I didn't mean it. "I could say the same to you," she replied, setting her umbrella down with a sharp tap. "You don't even work here anymore, remember? I was just cleaning up." Her laugh was soft, almost bitter. "You always have an excuse." "So do you," I said. That stopped her. She looked at me for a long time, long enough for the silence to turn into something electric. She moved toward one of the canvases, fingertips grazing its edge. "You think I don't know how this looks?" "I don't care how it looks." Her head turned sharply at that. "You should." But the words came out more like a plea than a warning. I took a step closer. The smell of rain clung to her warm skin under the cold scent of weather. She looked up just as I reached out, tucking a strand of damp hair behind her ear. My hand lingered. She didn't pull away. "You make it impossible to think straight," I whispered. She exhaled, eyes closing for half a second, enough to betray everything she'd been trying to hold back. "This is a mistake," she said. "Then stop me." She didn't. The storm outside cracked against the windows. The sound filled the room, matching the pulse in my throat. She was standing close enough now that her breath hit the hollow of my neck when she spoke. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Then tell me." Her hands tightened at her sides. "You're too young to carry someone else's damage." "I don't care about your damage," I said. "I care about you." The words hung there, too raw, too real. She blinked, and for a heartbeat, it looked like she might let them in. Then she stepped back, just one step, but it was enough to make the air between us ache. "You shouldn't say things you'll regret," she murmured. "I already regret not saying them sooner." That did it. She turned, her hand catching the edge of my shirt as if to steady herself or maybe to keep me from leaving. Her eyes met mine again, wide and searching. "You have no idea what you're doing to me," she whispered. "Maybe I do." The storm hit harder. Somewhere outside, thunder rolled through the night. She leaned in just enough that her lips brushed the corner of my mouth, not a kiss, not yet a breath, a promise, a threat to everything we'd been pretending not to feel. And then a sharp knock at the door. She froze. I turned toward the sound, heartbeat wild. Her voice was barely a whisper, "Don't move." The knock didn't stop. 3 quick raps, then silence. She turned toward me, her face pale in the low light. I'd never seen her look afraid before, not like that. "It's him," she whispered. "Who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the back of the gallery, where the storage room door stood half open. "In here." I hesitated. "You're serious? Please." Her tone left no room for argument. I slipped inside just as she crossed the floor to unlock the front door. Through the narrow gap, I could see a man standing there, mid-40s, expensive coat, impatient stance. His voice carried, even in hushed tones. "You haven't answered my calls," he said. Her voice came quieter, measured. "I've been busy." "With him?" The silence that followed hit harder than the thunder outside. I couldn't see her face, but I could hear the shake in her breath. "Daniel," she said finally, "you shouldn't be here." "So it's true." He stepped closer, his voice lower now, angry and familiar. "Do you know what people are saying?" "I don't care what they say." "You should," he said. "You're still my wife." My stomach dropped. The rest blurred, his accusations, her half-pleas for him to leave, the sound of the door slamming when he finally did. When she came back, she didn't look at me right away. She just leaned against the wall, her hand trembling around her coat buttons. "You were married," I said quietly. "Am," she corrected, then shook her head. "Was. It's complicated." I waited, but she didn't elaborate. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused. I should have told you, she whispered. Why didn't you? Because I wanted one part of my life that didn't come with an explanation. She walked past me, close enough that her sleeve brushed my arm. The contact made my pulse jump, but she didn't stop. You probably think I don't. The words came out sharper than I meant. You think this changes what I feel? She turned then, slow, eyes searching mine. It should. But it doesn't. She closed the distance between us in 2 steps. Her hand lifted as if to touch my face but stopped midway. You don't understand what this could do to me, she said. My job, my reputation, I'm not the one you're trying to convince, I said. That broke something in her. She reached for me suddenly, almost angry, fingers curling into my shirt. This can't happen, she said, but her voice was already giving her away. Then tell me to leave. Her lips parted. No sound came out. The rain outside softened to a hush. Her breath shook when she finally said, You should go before I forget why I told you to. I didn't move. She looked up, eyes wet but fierce. Tomorrow, she whispered again, the word trembling like a secret she couldn't stop keeping. The next evening, the rain stopped, but the air still felt heavy, like the storm had only moved inside. She didn't say anything when I arrived. Just unlocked the door, stepped aside, and let me in. The gallery was dim, lights low, the smell of turpentine and old wood hanging in the quiet. You shouldn't have come, she said. I know. Then why are you here? Because you told me not to be. Her lips pressed together, the faintest twitch of a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You make everything sound simple. It's not simple, I said. But it's real. She walked deeper into the room, stopping beneath a painting I hadn't noticed before, a self-portrait, unfinished. The brushstrokes were harsh, unblended. Half her face disappeared into white canvas. I painted this before I met you, she said. Back when I thought I was done with everything. I stepped closer. You're not done. She turned to face me. You don't know what I've had to lose just to stay still. Then stop staying still. The words slipped out before I could think. My hand found hers, warm and trembling. She didn't pull away this time. Her breath caught. You don't understand what you're asking for, she whispered. I do, I said. You. Something inside her broke then, the part that had been holding everything together. She took a step forward, closing the last of the distance. Her hands came up to my collar, not pulling, just resting there. I could feel her heartbeat through her palms. You shouldn't look at me like that, she murmured. Like what? Like I'm something you want to keep. I laughed softly, barely a sound. Maybe you are. Her eyes flickered, fear, longing, disbelief all at once. She leaned in, her forehead against mine, our breaths tangling in the small space left between us. This will ruin everything, she said. Then let it. The air around us felt electric, one breath too deep, one movement too far, and we'd be gone. She brushed her thumb against my jaw, eyes locked on mine. I could see her deciding not whether she wanted me, but whether she could survive wanting me. Then, finally, she exhaled. A slow, surrendering breath. Just once, she whispered. Her lips brushed mine, soft, unsure, full of everything we'd been too afraid to say. It wasn't perfect or clean, it was hesitant, human, real. When she finally pulled back, she kept her hand against my cheek, her thumb tracing a line down to my mouth. That's enough, she said quietly, though she didn't sound convinced. Is it? I asked. She smiled, sad, steady. It has to be. For the first time, I understood her completely, all her fear, her strength, her wanting, her restraint. And in that understanding, I realized something worse than losing her. She wasn't running from me. She was protecting what was left of herself. Weeks passed after that night, the one that blurred every line we swore to keep clear. We still saw each other, but quietly. Always in half-lit spaces, always pretending there was nothing new between us. Yet everything had changed. The pauses were longer, the silences softer. We didn't need to say it anymore. It was there, in every look that lingered too long, in every careful touch that lasted 1 second more than it should have. She started leaving the door open for me again. Not wide, just enough that I could push it with one hand and find her inside, pretending she hadn't been waiting. One evening, I found her sitting on the floor beneath that unfinished self-portrait. The one she'd once said represented everything she'd lost. I should have finished it, she murmured as I sat beside her. Why didn't you? I didn't know what to paint into the empty half. I looked at the pale space, at the rough edges that cut across the canvas like hesitation. Maybe it wasn't supposed to be finished then, I said. Maybe you were waiting to see what else was possible. She smiled, small, tired, real. We didn't talk much after that. We didn't need to. I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Her fingers fit through mine, warm and slow, like she was testing if it was still allowed. When she finally looked up, her eyes were wet not from sadness, but from the kind of relief that makes your chest ache. I've spent so long trying not to feel anything, she said. It's exhausting. Then stop trying, I whispered. Her thumb brushed over the back of my hand. You'll leave one day, she said. You're supposed to. Maybe, I said. But not tonight. She nodded, and something in her finally let go. The world outside the gallery was quiet, no rain, no thunder, just the faint hum of night. The light from the ceiling cast a soft glow over us. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her breath warm against my neck. For a long time, we just stayed like that, still, breathing in sync, not needing to fill the silence. I thought this would ruin me, she said finally. Maybe it's saving you, I answered. She laughed under her breath, the sound low and shaky. You really are trouble. Yeah, I said. But you keep finding reasons to see me anyway. She tilted her head, eyes half closed. Maybe that's the point. I kissed her forehead, gentle, certain, and felt her fingers tighten around mine. No promises. No forever. Just that moment, two people who stopped running long enough to feel something honest. And for both of us, that was enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?